Hello all, welcome to the session of Management Principles and Applications, and today we'll discuss organizational structures or formats. Classical organizational formats or structures. So these formats or structures, they view organization as a process of construction in which a great number of small work units are built into jobs, departments, divisions, and finally a whole institution, according to Keith Davis. So these organizational formats or organization structures, they are actually a formal pattern or network of vertical and horizontal authority relationships among different positions in an enterprise and among the personnel occupying these positions. So it is a kind of a skeleton framework through which management coordinates the efforts of employees to attain the desired objectives. These formats groups activities into smaller units and create departments. Organization structures are planned prior to appointment of people. Interaction amongst people and their social needs are not greatly emphasized in these formats. So every enterprise has to evolve its own organizational structure on the basis of its size, nature of activities, competence of personnel, and management philosophy. So there are several types of organizational formats. We can actually divide them into classical and modern. So in the classical one, we have line organizational, we have functional organizations, and we have line and staff organizations. Like I told you, classical organizational formats, line organization, line and staff, and functional organization. Line organizations. What are line organizations? In line organizations, decision-making power vests with top managers. They have the ultimate responsibility for attainment of organizational goals. Decisions are taken by superiors and communicated to subordinates who further communicate them to their subordinates. So in the way, information flows from top to bottom. Now this gives line to the line authority. It is also known as direct operative authority. It is the right of superiors to exercise authority over subordinates. So an example can be military organizations where a single head commands and issue orders. Managers in line authority are also known as line managers, and they respect the scalar chain. The authority, orders, commands, and instructions flow from top to bottom in a line, and responsibility flows from bottom to top in a line. Now, these line organizations have a direct chain of command through which the authority flows from top to bottom. So, line organizations are also known as scalar or hierarchical organizations due to a series of uninterrupted vertical relationships which connect the position and tasks of each level with those above and below it. Every superior has complete command over his subordinates, and every subordinate is directly accountable to only one superior immediately above him. So because of this reason only, what principle is it following? The unity of command principle. Also, each department is self-contained, as the subsidiary service functions are under the charge of departmental heads. So there are no separate advisory or staff units attached to it. All purpose on the same level of authority are independent of one another. So the line of authority not only serves as the avenue of command to operating personnel, but also provides a channel of communication, coordination, and accountability in the enterprise. So this is a kind of a line organization where we have board of directors, managing directors, and so there are three divisions: production manager, there is finance manager, and then there is sales manager. So here the personnel manager's authority responsibility relationship is being shown in the line form of organization. Now, what are the features of line organizations? The very first is line authority. So like I told you, authority flows from top to bottom. Every superior has direct authority over the subordinates. Then second is scalar chain. Every superior delegates work to his subordinate and gives him authority to exercise that work. The subordinate accepts the delegated tasks and delegates it further to his subordinates. This forms a scalar chain. Then communication. How would the communication flow? Communication will flow from top to bottom. And what about the responsibilities? They would flow from bottom to top. So this, like responsibilities, the suggestions and complaints also will flow from bottom to top. Every superior and subordinate are connected through formal chain of communication. The next is responsibility and accountability. Every individual in hierarchy has clearly defined responsibility and accountability. The accountability and responsibility is unitary, since two or more persons cannot be jointly held accountable for the same task. This structure limits the area of action for each position and position. Then we have independent relationships. People of different functional areas at the same level are independent of each other. They report to immediate superiors of their department in a hierarchy. All departmental heads are ultimately responsible for departmental results and finally report to the chief executive of organization. Now, suitability. This form of organization is suitable for small sized undertakings. As the organization grows in size, its operations become complex and it becomes necessary to appoint specialists to assist the line managers. Now, merits of line organization. What can be possibly the merits? It is simple because it is the simplest form of organization. Every person knows his boss and subordinates. Everything is clearly defined, and a person's area of discretion is also clearly defined. He knows clearly his responsibilities and the superior to whom he is accountable regarding the orders and instructions received from him. Then attainment of objectives. Since the structure focuses on tasks to be performed, the objectives are achieved efficiently. Jobs and relationships are task oriented with very little or no focus on people and social interactions. Orders, instructions, work groups, responsibility, accountability all relate to objectives and their optimum achievement. Economical. It's particularly for small sized organization. This is an economical form of structure as staff specialists are not appointed and everyone focuses on how best they can contribute towards organizational objectives. Order. So there is clearly defined authority and responsibility relationship which enables every person to carry out his or her own part of the task in a disciplined and orderly manner. Obviously, you can do the things, you can do the tasks in an efficient way when you know exactly what you have to do. Also, there is unity of command and direction that is going to promote the discipline in the organization. Immediate superior has control over immediate subordinate, which helps in maintaining order or discipline in the organization. Now you can imagine how is it so easy to control, because you know whom you have to control as a superior and you know your boss whom you have to directly report. So everything is clear cut and is in order. Control. Every superior maintains direct contact with subordinates and can therefore exercise control over their activities. Now, like I told you, control becomes very easy when you exactly know whom you have to control. So control is maintained by a single superior, and because of this clarity, the control becomes easier. Then speed. The work is accomplished fast because of one-to-one relationship between the superior and the subordinate. Most of the decisions are taken by superiors. Staff and expert advice is usually not sought for. This makes the decision-making process less time-consuming. Clarity. Now, when it is orderly, it is in a disciplined way, then obviously there is a lot of clarity. So there is a clear division of authority, responsibility, and accountability to maintain order and discipline in the organization. This enables the work to be performed efficiently and effectively. Development of managers. Since decisions are made by managers without the assistance of staff specialists, it increases their decision making capabilities and develops their potential to take independent decisions. Managers discuss the problem solving situations themselves and arrive at practical or optimum decisions. This results in their development and also development of the organization they are managing. So various managers have to combine among themselves the expertise of the staff. There is overall or all-round development of the managers concerned. So that leads to the development of managers. Then effective communication. So communication flows in a line both upwards and downwards. Links are not bypassed in the scalar chain. This reduces the chances of information filtration and information remains authentic. This also avoids spreading of rumors and results in effective communication. Limitations of line organization. The very first thing is because of its structure, everything is so well defined and predefined that it becomes so inflexible. Hence, the emphasis on hierarchical relationship between the superiors and subordinates and relationship with the external environment, it is not taken into consideration. This makes it an inflexible form of organization structure with respect to social interactions and expert assistance of staff if required. Then it ignores social values. The emphasis is only on work-related activities. Informal interactions among people is neglected in this approach. Influence of peer group affecting the nature of work at every level is ignored in this form of organization. Though line organization, it focuses on hierarchical relationships, social values are important complement to formal relationships to achieve organizational objectives, which the line organization fails to address. Then concentration of authority at the top. So all the authority is concentrated at the top in the line organization. So, all the authority flows from top to bottom and the responsibility bottom to top. Hence, there is concentration of authority at the top. If top managers do not efficiently manage the organizational activities, they will not be able to achieve the business objectives. Higher authorities also demand obedience to orders, which primarily results in one-way downward communication. So, it becomes imperative for the top management to be really competent if the organization has to succeed, because there is a centralization of authority. Lack of expert advice. The specialized services of experts from inside and outside the organization is not available. The top managers take all the decisions, whether strategic or operational. Even if there is a problem, managers take collective decisions to deal with that situation without resorting to expert advice. So, this may be seen as a lacune in the line organizations. Overburdened. Who would be overburdened? Because of all the authority, the top executives, they deal with every business activity, like I've told you, be it strategic or operational, and hence they will become overburdened with the work. So they do not spend as much time on strategic matters as they should spend. Sometimes they are so busy looking after routine organizational matters that they cannot concentrate on important matters. This can affect organizational efficiency if the organizations are large in size. That is why the line structure is suitable for small organizations. Lack of commitment. When all the authority is bulged at the top and there is very less authority with the line managers, then they would not feel that much committed to their work, right? So when subordinates work strictly according to the instructions of top managers without using their creative and initiative abilities, they may become non-committed to work. People like to work in an environment of cordiality and mutuality rather than orders and instructions. Then lack of motivation towards group effort. Since people hold personal accountability for the work assigned, they do not indulge into group discussions and participative decision making. This actually holds them back, and there is very less motivation to do something because their creativity is not being used, and hence there is nothing like group effort or the synergistic effect. An organization, a line organization, is as good as their top management. So the focus is only on vertical relationships and not the lateral ones. Lateral or horizontal relationships are also important for the promotion and coordination among activities of different departments. Then lack of specialization. As managers perform a wide variety of functions, they do not perform specialized tasks. Whether it is related to organizational matters, they are managed by the top managers. Modern organizations operate in competitive environment where specialized activities lead to growth and diversification. Hence, specialization is very important. Business environment is specialized. Every organizational functional area and level performs specialized tasks. In the absence of specialization, business decisions may not be as effective as they could be otherwise. Hence, an organization should promote specialization, which line organizations doesn't. Then coordination. Absence of horizontal relationships, open communication, and participative decision making make coordination difficult in line form of organization. So all is vertical and there is not much of horizontal relationship, and that is the reason there is lack of coordination among line managers. Where the line organizations should be adopted. So this form of organization is suitable for, like I told you before, small scale organizations where nature of work is rather simple, number of levels and subordinates is less, specialized services are not required, communication is vertical, control is direct, managers perform duty, routine and strategic affairs independently, and therefore control can be centralized at the top. In such organizations, line organizations are effective. Line and staff organization. Now, what is that? Organization which has both line and staff positions or authority is called line and staff organization. While line authority gets the work done by exercising direct authority, staff authority assists the line positions in doing their work. Thus, line authority is directly related to getting the work done and staff is indirectly related to it. So, what are the line and staff positions? A line position is enjoyed by virtue of position in the organizational hierarchy, and staff position is enjoyed by virtue of specialized knowledge and skills to deal with specific problem areas. A line manager is responsible for attainment of organizational goals through coordination of individual and organizational activities. In a small and simple group of people, one person can achieve this objective, but in large organizations, the complexities and problems increase, and therefore one person cannot take the responsibility of achieving the goals alone. In fact, he does not even have the skills to solve problems of all the functional areas. So, let's see the difference between line and staff authority. What is the purpose? The line managers are responsible for accomplishing major goals of the organization, whereas the staff assists line managers in accomplishment of these goals. Authority wise, the line position has direct authority over their subordinates, whereas they do not have direct authority over line departments. Direction of authority, it flows from top to bottom, it is vertical. About staff positions, it flows amongst managers of functional areas, it is normally horizontal in direction. The primary function, the nature of function that line position has is primary, whereas nature of function for staff positions is only supportive. The sources of power. Formal authority is derived from the organizational hierarchy that can use rewards and punishments to get the work done from the subordinates. Now, in case of staff positions, there is no formal authority, only expert power derived by the virtue of specialized knowledge and skill, and it cannot use rewards and punishments to get the work done through, though it is sometimes used by them. Now let's see by an example here, line and staff organizations. Like I told you before, board of directors, managing directors, production, finance, sales. This is a structure of line organization. Whereas in case of production, so there is a manager R&D, manager personnel, manager purchase. So they are there to support. So these the dashed lines here shows that the personnel managers is going to help these people in production or finance or in sales, right? So that is a staff authority. Features of line and staff organization. What are the features? The line authority achieves the major organizational goals and staff authority assists the line authority in achieving these goals. Staff specialists perform specialized tasks of decision making and provide expert advice on various managerial problems. Staff has specialized knowledge in their fields and make recommendations to line managers when they feel necessary to do so. Line managers may or may not accept the staff advice unless otherwise directed to do so by the top managers. Staff advice is only recommendatory in nature. Line and staff are not formally related to each other through authority-responsibility relationships. Line managers seek staff advice which they may or may not follow. Staff cannot insist on the same. So the staff authority has the right to advise or counsel those in the line authority. For example, human resource department employees help other departments by selecting and developing a qualified workforce. A quality control manager aids a production manager by determining the acceptable quality level of products or services. So therefore, staff authority gives staff personnel the right to offer advice in an effort to improve line operations. So this is basically, now what are the merits of line and staff organization? The reduction in workload. So line executives do not have to deal with every organizational matter. Through the assistance of the staff, they can concentrate on important and strategic issues. Line and staff being part of the same organization, this promotes overall organizational efficiency. Then next is analysis of the problem. If line managers need help to fully comprehend the problems, staff specialists assist them. They help to identify the problem, gather information to arrive at alternative solutions, and select the best solution to the problem. The line executives are thus relieved of carrying out the detailed problem-solving analysis. So the workload gets divided. The quick and better decisions. Since all organizational decisions cannot be taken by line managers alone because of their physical and mental limitations, staff specialists help in taking quick and better decisions by providing them skilled and specialized advice whenever it is needed. Staff personnel are experts in their areas of specialization and give enough thought and consideration to the problem and decision. Reservation of authority. Though line managers can have the expert assistance from staff managers, they get those decisions implemented through their subordinates. The authority is thus retained by line managers, though assistance from staff specialists is taken whenever necessary. Increase in the competence of staff. Imagine a situation where you have some people to support you and help you whenever you need. What will happen? It would increase your competence and efficiency. So offering suggestions to deal with new and complex problems develops the staff specialists. Staff personnel focuses on their discipline, which promotes opportunities for growth in that area and increase their efficiency. Increased competence provides prospects for personal development, which is conducive to organizational growth. Then, of course, specialization. Both line and staff concentrate on their own specialized activities. What will happen? It would absolutely promote the creative thinking for generating new ideas as well as organizational growth. While the line executives contribute directly to the operations of their departments and organizational goals, staff specialists help line executives in achieving those goals. Limitations of line and staff organizations. Now, only line organizations were compared to these ones very simple. So the complexity increases. Line and staff relationships are not very clear because there is no clear line of demarcation between line and staff authority. Their area of discretion is not very well defined. They often tend to encroach upon each other's area of operation, and this may create confusion in the organization. Line and staff conflict. Though staff is an advisory body that assists line managers in performing their work efficiently, there may arise conflict between the two due to difference in their approach that the line and staff have towards the organizational problems. Sometimes personal conflicts also result in organizational conflicts, resulting into overall organizational inefficiency. Coordination. Now, because there is lack of clarity and there is a little, the lines, the boundaries are blurred. Because of this, the duties of line and staff managers and conflict between them creates problems of coordination between the line and staff. This affects effective attainment of organizational goals. Now, suitability. Appointment of staff executives is costly. This form of organization is therefore unsuitable for small size firms with a small budget. Frustration. The staff experts is only a recommendatory body whose advice may or may not be adopted by the line executives. So this is only a support body. This can become a source of frustration for the staff specialists that they do not have a direct contribution in the organizational goals. Then centralization. Since ultimate decision-making authority rests only with the line managers, the organizations tend to be more centralized. This restricts creativity of lower level managers and supervisors, just like line organizations. Now, where or for which kind of organizations this line and staff structure is suitable? This form of organization is costly and thus suitable for large scale organizations where complex and specialized activities require expert advice of specialists. It provides specialized advice to line managers without violating line authority over people of their departments. Its success, however, depends upon interpersonal relations and harmony between line and staff specialists. So it is very necessary that they do not have a conflict or they do not compete or counterproductive to each other. So the line and staff experts should coordinate and cooperate with each other for higher organizational objectives. Now this was all about line organization and line and staff organization. Thank you so much for listening.